I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurrundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and today I'm going to be recommending some of my favourite foodie romance books because I seem to be acquiring a lot of them. They're not particularly great in terms of the fact that I feel like eating all sorts of snacks while I read them because the majority of these are bakery books. Go figure. Not all of them, but most of them. I have been acquiring some favourite books that feature this trope. And you know what? I can't say that I'm sad about it because they're a lot of fun. So obviously these are books that are going to feature characters who either work in the food industry or books that feature food quite heavily. And we're just going to jump straight into it. The first one that I want to mention is Make It Sweet by Kristen Callahan. This one is about Emma, who is an actress who is kind of recovering from finding out that her character is being killed off a TV show, and her character is quite beloved. And she also is recovering from walking in on her boyfriend cheating on her. And so she's gone off to a place called Rosemont to rest and relax. And while she's there, she ends up meeting ex-hockey player Lucian, who is also staying there and has a connection to the owner. At first, they don't get along at all. And then Lucian begins to leave sweet treats around for Emma because he happens to love cooking and baking, and he ends up preparing all of the meals at Rosemont. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful book. I love Kristen Callahan, and I don't know why it took me so long to read this one, but I'm so glad that I finally picked it up. After that, I want to mention Battle Royale by Lucy Parker. Lucy Parker is an author that I love. I've enjoyed all of the books by her that I've read. This is about a former reality baking show contestant, Sylvie Fairchild, who was on a very prominent baking show in the UK, and I don't think she won, but she became quite popular because she made these amazing, colourful, glittery creations, and she was known for sort of having that out there style. And now flash forward a few years and she's opened her own bakery, and you know, it's a very fun, bright bakery that happens to be across the road from one of the judges from the show who she had this kind of mini rivalry with because he's very by the book, very elegant type baked goods, that sort of stuff. And now they have businesses opposite one another. His name is Dominic, and he inherited the bakery from his family, and his family bakery is sort of the go-to for the royal palace. And suddenly there is a royal wedding on the horizon, and there is a bit of a competition that sparks up between Dominic and Sylvie as the two try and vie for the position of baking the wedding cake. And then there's a few other bits and pieces that happen. There's a little bit of a mystery plot going on, and there were so many funny scenes in this book that I loved it, and I was very, very hungry while reading this book. I don't even like heaps of sweet things and like cakes and things like that, but I was just like, gimme, that's what I want. They sounded amazing. I would be very remiss if I didn't include an Alexis Hall book in here. Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake is a really fantastic story, but there are some very hard-hitting things in here. This one kind of blurs the lines a little bit between women's fiction and romance, but it does it in the best possible way. Rosaline is a single mum, and she's given up a lot in life to raise her daughter and to do the best job she can at that, and then she's given the opportunity to participate in a reality baking show, and she loves to bake. And while she's there, she ends up meeting two men. There is the very well-spoken, well-educated Elaine, and then there's the very shy electrician Harry, and she gets along great with both of them, and they're both attracted to her, and one is more aggressive than the other, and we have to see Rosaline really trying to figure out how she feels about either of them, as well as how that fits into her life and the fact that she has a daughter and she has responsibilities and things that she has to take care of outside of this, because Elaine and Harry have different expectations of her. And the book is just written so well in the way that Alexis Hall puts these stories and crafts these stories together that it was delightful. I do want to say that for Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake, there is, I'm trying to think about the best way to describe this without sort of giving it away. Rosaline ends up in a situation where she is not given consent for things, and nothing happens to her, but she's pretty much forced into this situation where she is very uncomfortable and has to remove herself from it. So be aware of that going into it. It doesn't last long, and as I said, nothing actually happens to her, but it is in there, and it's I think it can be quite a confronting scene for some people. Next, I want to recommend From Scratch by Katrina Jackson. This is a really short story. It is set in the small town of Seaport. You have Mary, who is resettling into this town after she sort of fails as an academic, and she decides she wants to come to this small town. She wants to open a bakery. She wants to just have that sea change kind of life. And just before her bakery opens, she ends up meeting the local police officer Miguel and the local fire chief Billy, and sparks fly. This is an MMF romance, so be aware of that going into it, but it's short, it's fun, there's baking involved, and Katrina Jackson is always a good time. I also have Chef's Kiss by Stephanie Shea. This one is a sapphic romance. It is about a very successful chef, Jen Coleman, who has 2 Michelin star restaurants, and she got this far because she runs a really tight ship. She has very high expectations of her staff, and she doesn't mix business with pleasure. And then we have Valentina, who is an up-and-coming chef. She has graduated from culinary school, she was top of her class, and she's dreamed of having the staging role at Gia, which is one of Jen's restaurants. She ends up working there, and then she quite literally crashes into Jen, which is an uncomfortable scene for both of them. Jen is quite a removed person. She doesn't get close to other people, but there is a spark between them. So this is kind of like an office place romance, boss-employee romance, but it was really good. And while there are, I think, some desserts mentioned in here, this one is more about food, and therefore I didn't get quite as hungry. And this one also, I think, for memory, is an age gap romance. I think there's about 10 years difference between the two of them. And finally, for something fun, there is If You Give a Jerk a Gingerbread by Yana Aston. This is part of the Reindeer Falls series. I think it's book 2. And this one is about Ginger Winter, who is entering into a holiday baking competition for gingerbread, and she ends up competing with Keller James, who I think is actually a chef or a famous celebrity chef. They end up competing against each other and then falling in love. It's super short, it's very fun. This is a great one for the holidays, but I couldn't not include it in this list. All right, so those are my foodie romance recommendations. In the comments, I would love to know if you have any favorite foodie romance books that I have not included here. Feel free to let me know down below, because I'm always looking for more. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave your favorite cake emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.